Hi everyone. Thank you for joining
Hello.
us on the hello. Thank you
Hello,
for
sorry.
joining us
Hi.
on today's Cloud Skills Show. We are back again. We are live this time every week on Microsoft's Learn TV and on social media. We're really glad you could join us. Today we are going to be talking about Power Platform, and I'm really excited about some of the guests that we've got coming up today. So without further ado, here is our agenda. So first of all, our co-host today is the wonderful Claire Smith, and you'll be hearing from her again in just a few minutes. And then we're going to be meeting Rory Neary, who is a Power Platform specialist and Microsoft MVP for the Power Platform, and he's going to be talking through what the Power Platform is, and also coming back later to talk about Power Apps for Kids. We're going to meet Samit Saini, who was formerly a security guard at Heathrow Airport, but is now actually an IT specialist through the power of the Power Platform. And then we're going to meet Jessie Navaranjan, and she is a senior consultant at Altius, which is a Microsoft partner, and she's going to talk about her career journey using Power Apps and Power BI. So I'm sure you'll agree, an absolutely fantastic agenda for today, and very much packed. So without further ado, we're going to be meeting our first guest now, and that is Rory. And hi, Rory.
Hi there. Thanks for having me on.
You're very well. Yeah, it's great to have you. Great to have you. So, Rory, before we talk a bit about Power Platform, would you like to introduce yourself properly and tell everyone what you do?
Right. Well, so you've described where I am now. So my name is Rory Neary. I am a Power Platform solution architect. I used to be an accountant as of about 4 years ago, and then I kind of started on this journey. I didn't really know what I was on, or I didn't know I was on the journey at the time. I kind of got lucky because when I moved out of accountancy, Power BI was in its infancy. And then I kind of moved through that and then into Power Apps and into Power Automate. And, and I like talking about the Power Platform. So I took every opportunity I could to talk about it, which started off with Dynamics 365, which was so it's been a great journey and a great journey to a wonderful community as well.
That's great, and I know there's a huge amount of things in the Power Platform. We'll cover that off in a minute. So so a lot of the things in Power Platform, they actually come out of the Dynamics side of things. Is that right?
Yes and no. I mean, I think that it's the connecting to Dynamics, which is synonymous with what's called the Common Data Service. Common Data Service is a database, and Dynamics sits on top of this Common Data Service database. But the Common Data Service is only one of the many. There's over 300 connectors within the Power Platform, and the Common Data Service is one of them. But you could just as easily build whatever you want to build using Oracle or Salesforce or SQL Azure. It is kind of just a database as well. It is but it's also very closely linked, as we may or may not get to see later on. We've got a short time on the Power Platform.
Yeah, cool. And so Power Platform, it's not one app, right? Is it? It's actually a portfolio of different things. Could you tell us what the three major parts of the Power Platform are? Well,
we've actually got a new kid on the block, so it's actually now 4 different products. So and they weren't always linked products. So there was Power BI, that was always called Power BI. We had Power Apps, which was always called Power Apps. But following on from that, we had Flow, which was then renamed to Power Automate. And at that point, we then started talking about the Power Platform, and then most recently we had Power Virtual Agents added into the Power Platform family. Just got a bit sunny here.
Yeah. So four different things, and but Roy, you've mainly been focused on Power Apps. So maybe we can talk about that a bit first. So what is Power Apps? How do people actually get started with that?
So Power Apps is a low code, no code way of enabling people within businesses to build their own productivity solutions. So recently, I think it was James Phillips stood up and he was talking about how it used to be the case that there was an app for that. People would say, oh, there's an app for that. Well, actually, in most business cases, there isn't an app for it. There isn't something that you can quickly spin up. And the real thing, the beauty about Power Apps is firstly that it sits and is safe within your tenant. So you have to log into it in order to use it. You can use it across multiple platforms. You can use it on your phone, on your tablet, on your PC. It has so many connections that you can make. But in fact, you can build apps that have no connections whatsoever. You can build them and just make something that looks a bit like PowerPoint. So you have that. The key about Power Apps Canvas apps is that you have this. What you see is what you get interface. So if you want to make something bigger, you kind of drag the edges of it. It does something programmatically, but in reality, that's you're just changing heights and widths and X and Y locations and so on. And it's a really nice. We were talking about this the other day. It's a really nice entry point for the whole of the Power Platform because you create data using Power Apps. It's a great experience.
And so one of the things that I was interested in is, I'm not a developer. I'm more of to the IT pro side of things. So if you let's say if I couldn't code at all, is it a waste of time thinking about using Power Apps, or is there some way I can still use that?
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. I mean, I don't know if you've got the video that I put together of where I demonstrate that in a period of about 2 minutes, this is me building an app. Now, admittedly, it's a templated app. So we're going to go to and this, I would thoroughly recommend people just go and do this because it's a really cool experience. So this is me building a data source. That's what we need for this thing to work. We give the data source a name, and later on what we'll do is we'll click a button, and what that button will do is it will build us a 3-screen app. I'd almost call it a classic Power App. So here we just kind of got this idea that maybe we're doing a kind of timesheet sort of experience. So you have to sort of have fields and so on. And although I'm using SharePoint in this case, I'm just doing it because it's an easy one for us to use. But you could just as easily be using the Common Data Service. You could just as easily be using SQL. You could just as easily be using any one of those many, many connectors. And so as you see, there is literally no code going on here. I'm just going to name this app. It's going to be called the Cloud Skills Timesheet. And the minute I hit this go button here, it is in the middle of making this app for me. Now, it's creating lots of screens, or rather 3 screens, and it's creating objects within those screens. And so let's say it creates maybe 3 screens, and each screen has got something like 10 objects in them. But every object is understandable, like a text object has text in it. A button does things. And here you are, the app has been made now. This is me whizzing around the screen. And when I hit the play, I can now enter some data here. This is my Hello World app. I'm going to pop some information into the hours, just pop some hours in there, and then hit the OK button. And then that's me done. And so that information is now stored within my SharePoint list. It actually just comes in before I hit the refresh, but that information is there. Now, I could use that on my phone now. I could share the app with people in my organization, provided they've got access to the SharePoint list, they're good to go. So it is low code. Now I could dig into, what each of the objects is doing, but the it's a great place to start, because you can then investigate. And the thing with it, the reason why so many people have got the capacity to be successful with it is because most of the formulas are actually have an Excel structure to them. So if you know Excel, you've got an awful lot of, you've got a good chance of being able to understand how these actually work. They're really good fun to use.
That's absolutely great, and I know that sort of from personal experience, and I've worked at Microsoft for a few years now. We've actually been using it inside the company to automate a lot of things as well. And I think it's like always surprised, in large companies, a lot of the maybe unloved IT things that don't have a really great process behind it. In the last couple of years, we've really been able to make that a lot more slick. And actually update a few of the older applications that maybe don't look so pretty as well at the same time. So I've seen both in a fun atmosphere but also in the workplace that these have great applicability. And I know that we're going to meet in a few minutes. We're going to meet Samit, and he's going to talk a bit more about what they're doing at Heathrow. But just briefly, because we're going to talk about Power Apps quite a bit today. There are the other bits as well, so we don't want to neglect those,
exactly.
do we?
So we talk about Power Apps, and that was Canvas apps we talked about. There's something else called model driven apps. We won't talk about them today because they're kind of like at the next level, if you like. Power Automate is all about, well, automating tasks. And what they do is essentially with Power Automate is you have a trigger and an action. You have at least one of both. So that could be anything, it couldn't be the trigger. It could be when an item is added. It could be something that happens every day at a certain time of the day. There are a whole, you can even have a Power App that makes it start. So there's lots of triggers that you could have. And then they go and do things. And obviously they do something that is data related. So, I could do a demo of that. I don't think we've quite got time. Now, the reason why they're linked very closely is because an app lives in an environment and flows live in environments. And apps have connections, and flows use those exact same connections because they're in the same environment. So that is Power Automate. It is a very brief version of Power Automate, and it is tremendously powerful. Honestly, I could talk about it for a long time. And please don't underestimate. We have people that are able to send an email to a mailbox. It gets read, and it uses the details in the email to turn on and off a server as and when it's required. There are so many things you can do with it, and but it is slightly more towards the pro developer place rather than the citizen developer space.
Yeah. But then I would also say I've used Power Automate a bit, and this is oh crikey, what's it asking me to do? There we go. I've certainly used that to automate some just some business processes from time to time, where it's been like when I get an email that says this, or when someone submits a Microsoft form that says that, I need it to go in this spreadsheet or on this SharePoint list. So I found that actually really helpful, and it's got there's 434 different services that you can add to that. So huge integration. And if anyone's watching that's familiar with things like Logic Apps on Azure, there's quite a bit of similarity and overlap there as well.
Yeah, they actually upscale to Logic Apps. They're kind of the same thing. So that's kind of flow, and those templates I thoroughly recommend, because some of them are actually really, in fact most of them are really, really well prepared, and they can really give you a massive head start in using it. So that's kind of Power Apps and Power Automate. Then we've got Power BI. Now Power BI sits to the left hand side of all of them, really, because Power BI doesn't live in environments. It doesn't, the licensing structure is different to Power Automate and so on. So it doesn't care whether or not you're connecting to a a SQL database, or whether or not it's Oracle or whatever it might be, that the licensing is based on how it's where the Power BI report sits. But the thing about Power BI, it is a data visualization tool. That's fundamentally what it is. But the thing that it can do amazingly well, it does extract, transform, and load. So extract is obviously when you go and get the data. So it connects to, hundreds, probably many hundreds of data sources. And the transform bit is the bit that gets overlooked. So that's your ability to take the data that you've just received and actually reshape it according to your needs. And that's not just filtering. There's lots of really clever things that you can do with the data.
Yeah, so that's really amazing.
It is absolutely amazing. And, we don't have time for all of these things. But then once you've finally done this transformation thing, you end up with some tables of data. And then what you do is you relate those tables of data to each other. And because of those relationships that you create, you can create visuals. And then, in and around the same time, you may want to do aggregations of data. So that's where you calculate them in certain ways in some conditions and certain ways in other conditions. But essentially what it means is you have a platform that allows you to look over millions, even trillions of rows of data. And that isn't the space that Power Apps and even Power Automate really live in. So it's that ability to look and kind of, condense all of that information into something small that is meaningful, that has drill down, all those wonderful things. So it's a different product.
That's wonderful.
Power BI. And then finally, you've got Power Virtual Agents. Now, essentially, Power Virtual Agents are bots. They are these things where you ask it a question, it says, "Oh, I think you mean this," and essentially, it is a kind of WYSIWYG, a drag and drop thing where you tell the bot, you teach the bot, what questions it might receive, and then based on those questions, it will then give out certain responses. But it's a bit deeper than that, in that the Power Virtual Agents sit on the common data service, and because of that, it can then query data. It can do things like make appointments. It can do loads of clever things. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on Power Virtual Agents. However, now that we have got the Oakdale Teams integration, you can actually build your own bots for free. Now they live within your team, but you can still build them for free, and you can have that experience of building them. Whereas if you want to build an externally facing bot, then the license cost is probably makes it a bit more difficult to then have that learning experience, because I think that the start point is might be $1,000 or something like that. So now we have the ability to build them within teams, and I think that will be a great starting point for most people.
Yeah, great. And I saw there's some great YouTube videos actually on that, and I won't click through all of those, but if you go to the link on screen to the Microsoft Docs and then you click through into Power Agents, you've got that video link just on there, so it's a great place to start.
Yeah, and I also know that Daniel Christian, he is pretty expert in Power Virtual Agents, so I would recommend to people that his channel will also give you a different flavor of the Power Virtual Agents piece.
Wonderful. Brilliant. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Rory, for that brief introduction. I know that we probably could have spent the whole call actually just going through what all of these things are. But we're gonna come back to you later in the show and talk a bit more about Power Apps for Kids, which is the community that you've been running. But for now, and actually, I know that when we would talk some of these other technologies you were talking through, we're going to cover in the next few conversations that we have. So we'll say bye to you for now and thank you, and see you later on in today's call. And we've brought in Claire Smith, who is our wonderful co-host for today. Hi,
Hi.
Claire.
Hi, Adam. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, well, it's an absolute pleasure. And actually, before we sort of introduce you, I just want to say Claire has been working in the background throughout the entire 2 series we've done of Cloud Skills Show to help find some wonderful people to appear on screen. So even though you haven't seen her yet, she's been working away in the background, and it's absolutely fantastic to actually have you on as a co-host for this episode.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. I'm very excited.
So, Claire, would you like to just introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about your day job before we meet our next guest?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll do a bit of a whirlwind tour. I've been at Microsoft for a number of years, and during that time, I've held a number of positions, which include sort of audience marketing, did some product management, and now I've moved into the community space, and I look after the MVP and RD programs for the UK and Ireland. And I'm in that wonderful position in our organization, Adam, where I get to work with an amazing group of people. And it's not just MVPs and RDs, but it's community leaders and community members as well. So I think I have a pretty awesome job, if I'm honest.
I think you do. I'm jealous. That's great. And so Claire, I think what Claire's actually been doing as well is, is helping. Not only have we had loads of MVP and RD guests, but also we've had other community guests throughout the 2 series, and it's really fantastic the work that you do. And as I say, I'm really glad that you could be with us today. But shall we meet our next guest?
Yes, that sounds great.
Yes, okay, and I'm going to disappear off for now, and I'm going to be back a little later in the show. But we're going to meet Samit now.
Hello, add him in. Hi, Samit.
How you doing?
Hi. I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for joining us. Now, Samit, I have to say the last time I saw you on a screen was during Ignite with Alison and Keith talking about Power Platform and Power Apps. How did that go?
Oh, it's always a pleasure to be, with Alison and Keith, and it's great to be there because I just and speak about the Power Platform and the community and the Power Addicts. It's truly amazing. I want to be talking. So
brilliant. So, Samit, you've got a pretty unique career journey that you've been on, and I know you want to share that with us. But you've been really inspired by Power Apps, and it's actually changed your life, changed your career, changed what you chose to do. So it'd be great to take us through that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely right. It hasn't just changed my career; it's changed my life completely. Yeah, I still remember the day. We had a business change manager. Her name is Komal, and she, spoke to all of us security officers, and that was my day job basically. So when I left school when I was 16, I couldn't think of any place to work but Heathrow Airport. My dad worked there for 27 years, and so I wanted to work at Heathrow Airport. And that was my day-to-day job, asking passengers, could you please remove your liquids, laptops, and iPads? So if you come to Heathrow, I'll probably have searched your bag in one time. But yeah, that was my day-to-day job for 13 years. And so coming back to how I started with Power Apps, it was because when Komal, business change manager at the time, she introduced the Office 365 to not just the office workers, but the applications to us as well as security officers. Now, we don't get to use applications like PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, and so on. We used to use our personal email addresses. But now we have Office 365 available to security officers. We can use these applications. And so Komal, the business change manager, says, do you know what? You have these applications available to you. Why don't you go and check these applications out? And that's what I did. I used to finish my shifts around 9-10 o'clock at night, and straight away I went home, and I couldn't wait to try something new. So as soon as everyone went to sleep, I got onto my computer and started to look at every application. And when I got to Power Apps, I clicked on a blog, and that blog said, you can create an app in 5 minutes. And I thought, okay, this sounds interesting. And it's great because, with these blogs now, they tell you how long it takes you to read something. And I don't read many blogs because I have trouble reading writing. But it said that it takes 5 minutes to read, and the steps look so easy. And I followed the steps. I opened up the Excel spreadsheet. I created the columns, what it's asking me to do, name the columns, save it, and then save it into OneDrive. Okay, I think, okay, that's great. Open up Power Apps. So I open up Power Apps, and it says go to the OneDrive, find your Excel spreadsheet that you saved, click Create, and you'll see your app be built within minutes. And that's what happened. Within minutes, what I've created in an Excel spreadsheet is just created on a Power App. I see the tick box, I see the text boxes, I see the labels, and all I have to do now is save the app, open up Power Apps on my phone, so I download that Power Apps on my phone, and when I opened it up, I was like, okay, this is amazing. As soon as I started putting stuff in the text boxes and press the tick button and see all the data going from my phone to the Excel spreadsheet, I was like, wow, that is truly, truly amazing. And I'm like, that's the first time ever in my life I felt really smart. And I'm like, I can do this. And we use a lot of Excel spreadsheets at Heathrow. What else could I create? And I'm like, then I got hooked. And ever since then, I have not stopped learning. And I'm really grateful for that, because it's given me a passion to learn something new every single day. And it's not just changed my career, it's changed my life, because now I'm really grateful because I get to spend more time with my kids. I don't finish my shift at 10 o'clock at night. I'm working from home now, which is because of the situation that we're in. But this has helped me to be very grateful that you can learn something new every single day. And when you learn something new, you don't know where it's going to take you. And my feelings was that I wanted to learn something. I learned something new. I applied it to my day-to-day job as a security officer, which was one of my first apps that I built, was a language app.
Okay.
And this where it was. We have loads of passengers. We're an international airport, and we have many passengers that have their bags rejected because they didn't understand the rules that you're not allowed to bring liquids or laptops or iPads. And we had to carry these books around, not across the airport, but only in certain areas, like behind the machine. And I thought, you know what, wouldn't it be great if we create an app instead of having a book? So I took the book home, and within weeks I was able to build something like this, and without any coding at all. All I was adding was pictures and buttons, and just navigating to one page to another. And the more I learned about Power Apps, I was adding things like videos. So I asked my colleague to do in his own language, to speak in his own language, to move liquid laptops and iPads, and then also add Microsoft Translator into this app. And that's what made me learn more and more about it. Then I was so excited. I showed it to my manager. I'm like, so can I show you this app? And he goes, so, okay, this is a great app. Who created it? And I said, I did it. And he goes, how much is it going to cost the company? I said, it's not going to cost us anything. And he said, okay, this is amazing. Let's introduce you to the business change manager, Komal. And so I sat down with her, showed her the app, and she goes, okay, Sam, this is amazing. Could you take 1 hour off your shift and show this to different departments across Heathrow? And I said, absolutely. And that's what I did. And then 2 months later, there was a job that came up to become a adoption specialist. And I said, I'll be really grateful. She said, would you like to apply for this job? And I said, I would, but I haven't updated my CV in 13, 14 years. I have trouble reading and writing. And she said, Samit, you applied yourself. I'm not going to look at your CV. I'll look at the passion that you showed using the applications, and I would love to have you in my team. And so we did. She took me on in her department on a secondment for 3 months, and then from 3 months I was building apps for removing paper processes and building it into apps, which helped us save not just paper, time, but also money. But also we were building apps by us, for us. And that's
amazing.
And that was great, because I as a security officer, I not just learning about building apps now. I got to learn about voice of the customer. We've got to learn about the voice of the business. I've got to learn about stakeholder management. just by learning about Power Apps, I've got to learn more skills while I'm doing this, because I'm not using this app for myself. I'm asking the people who are actually going to use it.
Yeah.
And so it was fantastic that I get to people I never met before. And I'm not a confident person, but I'm gaining more and more confident every day, speaking to different people, and about what they wanted to see. And it was great. And then my job came from building apps to build a community within Heathrow and teach them about Power Apps so they can build Power Apps with their department. And
you also did some things with schools, local schools, didn't you? Which was amazing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we got a great team where we used to have work experience kids coming to Heathrow, and they spend about a week, 2 weeks looking around Heathrow, learning about the business, learning about the airport. And then they said, Samuel, would you like to show these kids what you could do with Power Apps? And then it became a thing where now every time school kids come over, they don't just come over and look at Heathrow. They have to think of an idea that they would use and build an app. And it was fantastic, because now we're teaching them, okay, this is what you do your wireframe, what app you're trying to build. And when the school kids were building these apps, it was fantastic. They were teaching me new things, because they're learning Pythons at school. And it was truly amazing, where they got to not just show what Power can do to the teachers, but they're showing it to the parents as well. And it was fantastic to see on the right hand side corner, you see the kids are presenting their Power Apps to the head teacher, to the teachers, and say, this is what we built within 2 days. And it's great to see them, come to Heathrow and bring fresh ideas that we never thought about. And it was really, really good.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because you've been on this journey, you've helped children understand how they too can learn more about this particular technology. But you've also chosen to share what you've done within the community. You could have just held it into Heathrow and the children that you'd shared, but actually you're out there, you're speaking to people, you're running, I think it's a session called App in a Day to encourage people to use this. It'd be great to understand a little bit more about that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're doing App in a Day more than ever before now. It is a tough time at the moment where people are becoming made redundant or losing jobs. But one thing they can't take away is your learning, and this is what App in a Day is all about. You learn something new, and I didn't want to hide. I don't want to ever hide any of my knowledge, because knowledge is there to share. The community has been so amazing, where if I ever needed help, I don't get help from one person. I get help around the world. And this is why it's so amazing that you should always share your knowledge, because you don't know where that person can go next with that knowledge.
Yeah.
And I was there and my life. And it's all about passing it forward. And if with people, and that's what App in a Day is all about. If you have got that skill, share it with people. It doesn't, we did my colleagues at Heathrow as well, who thought that I've got nothing to share. I said, you're one step ahead of someone who's never, so you can still share that knowledge. And I'm not an expert at all, and I have sometimes difficulty. I always forget. I always remember that that person's never opened Power Apps before. So even if I can do that, that's one step forward and passing it forward. So, and then it's all about, when they learn something, it's always about sharing that knowledge. It's not about saying thank you to me or thank you to other people. Just pass it forward, and so you can help someone else with that newfound learning.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because the learning piece is around Power Apps is reasonably, I don't want to say the word easy. I've not created a Power App, so I'm not going to say the word easy. But as you said, you read a blog and you got involved and you did it. So it is possible. It's possible for a lot of people to do it. You don't need to have a deep technical background to even think about starting. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like it's just really amazing that it's opened up new doors for me. I mean, when you look at cooking and you never cooked before, you just follow the instructions. It's asking you to bake a cake. You follow the instructions, but you need these ingredients, and then you make a cake. Same with Power Apps. When you follow the instructions, it's amazing. People describe it as it's like PowerPoint and Excel put together, and it's just all you need to do is just open up Power Apps and just play with it, and it'll just blow your mind. Because I love when you teach people Power Apps, or when they've never opened Power Apps before. I love the expression in the face, and to say, "Is this it?
Is this all you have to do?"
This is all you have to do, and that's why it's so amazing when you. That's why it's so nice sharing that knowledge, because people are daunting when they hear the name app. They're thinking, oh, it's coding and too much learning and so on. But it just takes that one click, and you don't know.
That's great. Now, I know your stories have inspired an awful lot of people, but our next guest, Jessie, to say that there's a seamless link here, but Jessie actually worked at Heathrow with you, and she was inspired by what you were doing. So hi, Jessie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
But I only found out a couple of days ago that you'd actually worked together, and it was Samit who had planted the seed in your head of actually thinking about Power Apps and doing something a little bit different.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was really quite involved with Power BI to begin with. So I guess around 4 years ago now, Power BI was introducing to Heathrow. And so we had a training course, and it was very much like, if I don't adopt Power BI now, my career might get halted. And I had a really good time. I learned a lot of stuff, started designing reports, and then kind of got to the next bit when I was like, oh, what's this Power Apps thing? What's that? And Samit was around. So we chatted, and he said, well, this is what Power Apps is, and this is a really good book, and this is how you can do stuff. And it was massively inspirational to have someone there to talk to.
I mean,
Really good.
the thing is that when you see someone like Jess who just takes on Power Apps and takes to the next level at Heathrow, it's been truly amazing, because it helped build more and more communities within Heathrow as well. But not only that, Jess has been an inspiration to Heathrow even when she's left. She's been awarded many awards, and she's been nominated as well. And this day, I still am so proud that she was in the Heathrow, and she's giving people so much inspiration that what is the art of the possible with using the Power Platform.
That's brilliant. Samit, thank you so much. Jessie, it would be really great to explore your story. And obviously we've started out with a conversation around the fact that Samit was such an inspiration to you, and I think he's an inspiration to a huge number of people. But what's happening in your career now? Because I know you've moved from Heathrow, and I know, as Samit said, you've been nominated for a number of awards. So it'd just be great to understand what you're doing.
Yep. I mean, really, this whole journey started, I guess, especially really getting involved in the Power Platform, is joining Altius as a Power Platform consultant, primarily working in Power Apps and Power BI and Power Automate. So I work across all the 3 different areas. And really just getting involved in community work is what's kind of accelerated my involvement in this space. And a big driver of that was really the Power BI user group and the Power App user group. I can't stress enough how great it's been, especially pre-pandemic, where I was able to actually see people in person. And so I think I'm trying to remember if it was last year or the year before now. I'm getting all confused with COVID. Yeah, it was last year.
Time just disappeared.
Time just seems a bit of a strange thing right now. But last year I was able to speak at the Power Platform World Tour in London. And that was a really, good chance to start speaking at events. And ever since then, I'm still speaking at events. Yes, they may be online now, so they've taken a slightly different format. That's been really one of the biggest things that has changed in my life, is that community support, and also meeting people and the networking in that space.
And did you find out about the community through the links with Samit, or was it something that you sought out?
I definitely sought it out. So I was quite surprised that this even existed, because I knew that I liked doing Power BI and I liked doing Power Apps, but I hadn't realized that this community even existed. And, it sound strange to some of our users here, but Twitter. So I joined Twitter purely for Power Platform. I'd never used Twitter before prior to this. And I started Twitter thinking I'll reach out to people, and I joined Twitter for that pure purpose, and I came across so many amazing people, and it really exposes you to all the events that are out there and all the great work that people are doing. And off the back of that, I saw all the great work that people were doing, and as I became more confident in my work, I also started a blog as well. And so I started blogging about some of the exams I was sitting and advice that I had for other people, because quite often someone would ask me, so how did you go about getting your MCSA or MCSE? What exams did you sit? How did you sit them? And I felt like I was kind of repeating myself. I was like, oh, I did this and I did that and I did this. And I was like, now I just send a link. I'm like, here you go. Here it is. So yeah, that's been a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I also know that you obviously are an expert in Power Platform, Power Apps, and you've dipped your toe into mixed reality as well.
Yes, yep. So this is an amazing feature of Power Apps that came out a few months ago. So essentially what you can do, and I've actually seen it pop up more and more in like other websites now that I've come across it. It's kind of like you kind of see it more often once you've been exposed to it. So what you can do in Power Apps now is you can get a 3D model that you can download from a website. There are 3D model websites, and you can see it on the screen here. And what you can actually do is put these 3D models into your Power App. And then, so for example, you're going out to buy a chair. You can actually put that chair in your room and see how that looks. And it's just incredible. So before going out to buy furniture, you can basically build an app to do this. You can measure in mixed reality as well. So for example, if you wanted to know how big, say you have a TV and you just don't have a ruler with you, etc., and you can just use this mixed reality. And you can see here actually Sketchfab is a website in which you can pick up 3D models in order to use in your Power App. And yeah, it's just, I mean, a couple of years ago, if you told me I'd be designing 3D models in Power Apps, I'd be like, no way. I don't know what an app is. I can't build apps. But yeah, and I'm spending my life and my days really enjoying what I do as well. So it's not a chore. It's fun.
Yeah, and this is great. So is this something that you've learned as part of your day job and that you've applied to the community and shared with the community, or are you learning this outside of your day job and just exploring?
Yeah. So this particular piece was actually outside of my day job, and I came across it first in the Power Apps community calls. So there's a community call for Power Apps every month, and so when I was on one of those calls, I was really inspired as this topic was introduced, and I was like, oh, I can do this, and I went away and actually created this in order to help other people also create an application. So if I can go through the process of all that learning and how to create something like this, anyone can. Mm-hmm. And it's just about breaking it down and kind of simplifying the steps, because quite often I find that when you read documentation, there's always a what if scenario or little things or little niggles that you need to work out for yourself. And so that was really my intention, to help someone out there to do it for themselves as well.
That's amazing. So, just a bit of sharing here. I have a 15-year-old daughter who's looking for inspiration. She's looking for what she's going to do. She's just about to do her GCSEs. If she was to listen to you and hear what you've done, you're so inspiring.
Thank you.
What are you doing with, to help women in technology? Are there things that you're involved in?
Definitely. I mean, it's a very important thing for me. Being a woman and also from a diverse background as well. Quite often, we don't have enough women in this space, and it's massively important. Actually, in the near future, next Wednesday, I believe, we're doing a chat at Altius from the Altius Women's Network, which is a mentor-mentee chat between myself and Prathi. Prathi is also very well known in the Power BI community. She's actually one of the co-leaders of the Power BI user group. And we're going to be chatting about our experiences as being, as having that mentor-mentee relationship, but also what it's like to be a woman in this space, especially as both of us are out there sharing our experiences, sharing in the community. And yeah, I think we need more of us, definitely.
Yeah, and you're happy for, if people are watching this show, to reach out to you on Twitter.
Oh, definitely.
To speak to you and hopefully get some coaching and ideas from you as well, because
definitely.
Again, you're so inspiring. And I'd just like to mention, I know Samit mentioned this to me the other day, that you were nominated to be a future CIO. So it's a Women in Tech Award for you being a future CIO, which I think is amazing.
So it's
So
the
that's
Women
great.
IT Award, and they're a global company. They have award ceremonies all over the world, and it just seems like a lifetime ago because it was pre-pandemic,
Yeah.
loads of people in one room, and I mean that was amazing to meet other women and to be surrounded by so many women in tech. I think that was probably the single most experience in my life when I've been surrounded by so many inspiring women in one go. So yeah, incredible experience, and I can't believe the Power Platform led me to that, which is amazing.
Yeah, no, well, congratulations on the
Thank
nomination.
you.
I'm just going to take it back a little bit. Can you remember what your first Power App was that you created? Are you allowed to share it with us, or is it
I do
confidential?
actually, and I don't think it's too confidential at all. But I mean, Rory kind of touched on this earlier. So you can create an app in about a minute. So you basically, to bring users back to that, is you have a SharePoint list, and it's quite often what I do in training sessions as well. Is you have a SharePoint list, which is just a way of storing data, and then you click create an app, and then what it does is it does its magic, and all of a sudden it's create an app for you. So technically, that would definitely be my first application. But the first application that I put into production for users was essentially like an end of day report that staff at Heathrow were using.
Okay.
And essentially what they did is they would go in and they'd be able to basically say how the day went, any issues, and sign their name off. And before, this was being done in an Excel document, and you'd have tabs essentially. So one day for every single tab. And I just automated the whole process. And yeah, I mean, that was the first application I've built.
Mhm.
From then on, yeah, it's grown massively. I mean, I think that only had about 3 or 4 users day to day, but now some of the applications I build have 300-400 users, and it's just a crazy journey that I've been on.
Yeah, that is amazing. That's great. Thank you so much. It's so nice to speak
yes,
to you about everything you're doing. And
yeah,
it's just come up on the screen. We've got
yeah.
Jesse's Power channel. People need to be subscribing to that. I know that I do, and I love the videos that you're putting out. I don't know if you want to give people just an idea of some of the topics you're covering.
Yep. A lot of the topics I cover are challenges that I've come across. So quite often, I think I mentioned this earlier, when you're using Power Apps or Power BI or Power Automate, there's just a challenge that you come across, which may be documented in some way. I mean, for example, this video up here is actually more of like my creative way of how I decide to do logic within Power Apps. So yeah, I speak about everything Power Platform related. So it's not just Power BI, it's not just Power Automate. And I post weekly videos as well. Try and keep them quite short as well. So they're quite snippets to get people kind of interested. There's actually, it's on the screen right now, I have a video series which is an introduction to Power Automate, an introduction to Power BI, and an introduction to Power Apps as well. So it's really intended for people to get started with the tools and to understand how you go about developing your skills further.
Fantastic. So much great information there. So inspiring. Thank you so much for joining us on the call. I think it's or on the show, sorry. I think it's great to hear from us.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
So Adam and Rory, great to have you back on, and Samit.
I'm back. Hello. Oh. And we're going to talk about Power Apps for Kids, aren't we, briefly as well? We
are, yes. Yeah. So Rory, this is your, you came up with this and have done a brilliant job on ensuring that it happens on a regular basis. So it'd be great to hear a little bit more about it. Oh, you're on mute. I love that. I love that statement. We've been hearing that a lot recently.
Yeah, thanks for having me on to talk a little bit about this. I think there are many interesting aspects of Power Apps for Kids. Like, firstly, how it was developed, all those sorts of things. I think, in essence, though, it just came from a very simple idea that 2 ideas, really. One, I couldn't understand why more people weren't doing things with the Power Platform. And 2, I thought that children were more than capable of building apps. There was not anything terribly complicated about it, and I think that as well, it was all coming at the same time. So if you think about the pandemic, that meant that children were not being educated in the same way as they were before, and teachers weren't necessarily tooled up to do it. But also that children and parents were at home at the same time. So therefore, it was, it was a moment in time where there was an opportunity for them to do some great learning, but because they were with their parents and so on, it came at that time, and we tried something out. So we started it in March, and it was the Microsoft Reactor that they help us put on the show. Mm-hmm. So they're in the background. We've got Emma in the background, and she runs the sort of technical part of the show. She introduces it and so on, and then that. Shortly after the very first show, and I had a couple of people on, a couple of MVPs. I had Daniel Christian and Reza Durrani on, and Peter Vinstra was on. And very shortly after that, he did a little app with his children. And to be honest, his tweets do way better than mine. But actually, his children built this app. And then he approached me and he said, well, what do you want to do with Power Apps for Kids? And I said, let's just see where it goes and so on. But since then, I'm not going to sort of say we've formalized it, but we've got the website, powerappsforkids.com. We've got the Twitter handle, Power Apps for Kids. We've got the Facebook page, Power Apps for Kids. So we've kind of like built this whole thing around it, and we've got a YouTube channel. And so as well as, and there was also one thing I was conscious of was that a lot of the time people have these community events, but they're been and gone, and all that great learning just disappears. So you were either there and you got the great learning, or you weren't. But what I wanted to do was to be able to actually have a website. And if you actually go onto the videos part of the website, I don't think, then basically every session that we have done is on there. It's kind of going, running backwards, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I tell you what amazes me, how much I've learned when this thing is supposed to be for children.
Yeah.
And the really cool thing is that on Saturday we're having our first event. It's actually got nothing to do with me. It's a Power Apps for Kids event, but it's happening in Sydney, Australia, and it's going to be run by Elaine. And so I would completely invite, I think that structure of having the Microsoft Reactor assisting you, but using some of the materials that we've already created. I'd be more than happy for people to do it in their own languages. If they want to reach out to get the material from us, no problem, because I genuinely believe that there is that it's really important. I cannot imagine a tool that could possibly be more useful in the workplace that you could use to just build. I built an app and it's 12 meg, and it is every single play by William Shakespeare, every single line of every play, and it's 12 megabytes. It wasn't that difficult. The hardest bit was getting all of the the words and so on itself. So the possibilities of Power Apps are amazing. We've seen some amazing apps done by loads of children along the way. And so I just invite people to look at the website, because you'll find out what we're doing, and you can catch up, because all the material is there.
I'll just ask one quick question, and I know we've spoken up about Power Apps for Kids on a number of occasions. So are we expecting the kids to bring the children, or the children to bring the adults to the event?
It's a really important point. Adults have to, we don't want to be connected with children in that sense, if you like. If that child is coming on, we would expect the parent. It's not like taking your children down to, football and then leaving them and going. I would expect the parents to be with them. And there's a number of reasons. One, for their own safety and all that sort of thing, but also because the parents probably don't know about this, and so it helps them to help the child and so on. And the Power Platform revolution hasn't happened yet. We are just at the start. Mm-hmm. So the more people, you could have a great learning experience with your child because they learnt this thing, then they said, oh, how does this work? And it'd be for the parent to go onto Twitter and find out the new things. So yeah, parents are a really important part of this.
That's brilliant. Adam, I'll hand it back to you.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing, and I just wanted to mention as well, fantastic the work that Power Apps for Kids has been doing with Microsoft Reactor. Not everyone on here may be completely familiar with what the Microsoft Reactor is, so just very quickly, Microsoft Reactor, very well, reasonably well known for their to a global audience, very well known in the UK and in places like Sydney because it's a venue for venue and a community space for technical events. So I love the Reactor. I can't wait to go back to the physical location. But obviously in the world that we're in, they're continuing all of their events online, and that's a great opportunity for everyone, wherever you're based, to join in with these events. So, there is a Reactor London, and they're running things, you don't have to be in London, you can be anywhere in Europe to join that. The event that's happening at the weekend that Rory mentioned, that one is being run by the team in Sydney, but it's available to everyone in Asia and the Pacific region. So check out aka.ms/reactor and you'll find out more about some of the other events that are happening there as well. But really, really cool team that runs that. So we've just got a couple of minutes, and I was going to ask loads of questions, but we're almost out of time. So I'm sorry that we couldn't get into more questions, but I thought that it was absolutely fantastic, and we had so many links and resources from today, and I wanted to make sure that everyone that's watching the call can see those. So they're actually going to be posted afterwards. Sorry, Claire, that isn't meant to cover your face. So let's see if we can change the. I can't move you. I'm really sorry. But all of those links are ak.ms/CS. I can't say it, CS-S2E4. And also we'll put that link on Twitter as well, so that people can find it there as well. But that'll have all of the links and also people's profiles. But I just wanted to go through one at a time and thank everyone. So first of all, a huge thank you to Rory for presenting both that overview, the whistle-stop tour of Power Platform, but also telling us about the great work he's doing with Power Apps for Kids. Thank you to Samit for telling us that wonderful story around how not just how you changed career, but how you're continuing to change things at Heathrow for the better and empower people to take those processes and modernize them. Really fantastic to hear. Thank you to Jessie as well. Great to hear the work that you're doing for the community and those video resources, really inspiring. Certainly going to check some of those out myself as well, and we'll put all of those links online. And then thank you to Claire as well for being an absolutely amazing co-host. Claire, you do realise this means you need to come back.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's been fun, and thank you to everyone on the show. It's been amazing.
So thank you, and I am Adam Jackson. Thank you very much for joining us today. So this is where we say goodbye, but please do join us again very soon. There is no Cloud Skills Show next week, and that is because there is another event happening on Microsoft Learn. But join us in 2 weeks, and we'll be covering something web related. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.
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 Bye.